Welcome again to this CAV TV program, Thoughts and Talk. Our guest today is Mr. J. Keith Fowlkes, Vice Chancellor for Information Technology and Chief Information Officer here at UVa-Wise. Welcome.
Thanks.
Keith Fowlkes has studied business, information management, and leadership at the University of Tennessee, Webster University in St. Louis, and Regent University. He served as Chief Information Officer at St. Mary's College, Notre Dame, and Director of Academic Computing at Hanover College. He has also worked with numerous businesses in the computer and communications fields, including Microsystems Incorporated, ZB Soft Corporation, and for the PGA Indiana, and Campus Crusade for Christ's National Office. He has written and presented numerous articles on information technology. I understand Keith is also a musician and a composer. Joining us today to ask student questions is Laura K. Rogers. Laura is the student coordinator of this program. A senior administration of justice major, Laura has served in many leadership positions here at this college, on the SGA Senate, as a resident advisor, creating the college debate club, the Socratic Society, and involvement in the honors program. She plans upon graduation to work in law enforcement while pursuing graduate studies. I think today we will begin, Keith, by asking what is IT? What is information technology? We all think of computers and cell phones and the internet and so on, but to you as kind of an expert in the field, what does IT involve? What does it entail?
Well, I guess the question would be, what does it not entail these days? You know, my thinking about IT is that it includes, you know, what you would normally think: computers, cellular devices, smartphones, now iPads and Android tablets and those types of things, in addition to networks and internet connections and those types of things. But it also includes, you know, a personal aspect, a interpersonal aspect. I think that IT or IT operations that forget why they're doing what they're doing are very unsuccessful, or become very unsuccessful. They're serving people's needs to get work done, or to help people communicate, or interact, or collaborate, or teach, as it is here. So I think those are the most important parts of technology, in addition to all those things that you would think the techies run and make work, and the magic that goes on behind your cell phone or your computer. I think an important part of it is helping people and meeting business needs and meeting people's needs.
So, how has IT and the technological development changed social and economic life in your view?
Oh gosh, how's it not changed the markets? You know, of course, we in the Depression, you know, the markets were very slow to react to different types of economic and social changes. Today, it can be even more volatile, but we can monitor those things on a real-time basis. Basically, the government, the regulatory agencies, the investors can monitor those things on a real-time basis. So that's changed our economic structure in our country very much. There's about, 314 million people in the United States, and the latest statistics basically state that 228 million use the internet every day, and about 47% use internet for purchasing or some type of interaction. So that's a huge swing in economic and communication.
Right, I've noticed that, even online, certain businesses online, the prices for things change with the market.
That's right. That's right.
So they're so fast they can determine what is the supply and demand and adjust the price accordingly.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And it's a market where producers and retailers can actually see in real time what their competitors are doing. So it really does help the consumer in a very basic way in being able to get the best price. Now you can go online and at any online retailer, or for that matter Google and Amazon, and get 4 prices or 5 prices of the same, for the same good or services, and find out who's got the best price and go with them.
So on the whole, you would say it makes the economy more productive?
It does, absolutely. It makes the economy more productive, and in my opinion, it favors the consumer because consumers can have better buying power.
And less wasteful because we're not stockpiling things that may not be bought, and so it should make the whole system more efficient, right?
It should. It should.
No.
I think that the ease of ordering and that kind of thing, we're stockpiling things at the consumer side instead of the producer side.
Right.
So I think that's a problem in terms of social use of resources, I guess. But that's a different discussion for a different day.
I think, obviously, for us in education, the greatest concern that I know you work a lot on is the effect of IT on education and just basically on thinking, on human reasoning. And as someone who grew up, with a fountain pen, well, that was new. Actually, I grew up chiseling things on stone. But my concern as a teacher and a scholar, and I know your concern at the college with information, is are we, with IT, with so much information, so fast, and perhaps more fragmented, shorter kinds of information, are we negatively affecting the sort of long thoughts, the sort of length of thought and thinking that for us used to mean sort of the greatest ideas?
I think you're right. Well, on several different levels, we have challenges on several different levels in terms of our social condition and the way that we communicate. One of which also brings in the issue in terms of education is the role of online learning, and that gets into some fairly in-depth conversation. But I think that the challenge now, and I will call it a challenge for higher education, especially for we who teach, is the challenge is to teach students or reteach students how to communicate face to face. I think that that's a challenge for all of us in higher education, to somehow draw students back out of that cocoon that they have created for themselves, electronic cocoon that they've created for themselves, and to draw them back into engaging others on a face-to-face basis. That's a challenge.
When we walk across the campus and see every student we pass looking at their cell phone or smartphone or whatever, or sometimes standing together in a group, but they're not talking to each other.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Cell phone, and I think that's all right. They're communicating, they're talking or listening, but What is the difference now between that electronic cocoon and the actual presence of another human being?
Well, I think there are good and bad things to that. Online media and online learning, professors have seen now that student interaction for students who are more withdrawn and less likely to communicate in a classroom setting, they are more likely on online media to communicate well, to communicate on a more frequent basis. They don't feel like they are out in front of the cameras, so to speak, and people are watching them necessarily. They have a comfort barrier, a comfort zone that they can put between the people and themselves. And they can think about what they're saying before they say it, and they can review it. Now, I think that that's good in one sense. I think that that is damaging in another, because a lot of our work, as you know, here at the college is committee work, collaborative work with faculty and staff and students. And we have to communicate on a verbal basis. And I think that, once again, I think the onus is put back onto us as teachers and mentors to help students learn again how to speak, how to verbally communicate their thoughts to a group, and think on their feet also.
As you say, working with other people,
Yes,
socializing
verbally.
is different, in the same room, is different than being online and removed. And I've noticed that and heard about that with certain online degree programs, where particularly, say, in the professions like law or teaching or ministry, you can learn the basic facts.
That's correct.
But when I went to graduate school, of course, much of what we learned was a kind of apprenticeship that you really couldn't define in terms of the knowledge, but it was watching other older scholars, watching
Yes.
how they lived, how they interacted. And so, is there a way to replicate that in online learning?
Well, I have a philosophy, because I have spent most of my career in liberal arts institutions. A couple, of course, Hanover and St. Mary's College, really do see online learning as sort of, or did at one point, see the online learning as the bane of their existence. They're very residential campuses. They have a very, and as UVa-Wise does, has a very, very lively, exciting campus life environment. My philosophy, if you want my philosophy.
I want your philosophy.
My philosophy in the 20 years, 25 years that I've been in this work is that online is great for some applications for higher education. I think online is a good hybrid method of communicating information, taking tests, taking quizzes, interacting online for conversations. Does it replace on-campus educational efforts? I believe that the one thing that people miss the most is, number one, their interactions with their faculty, because the interactions online with their faculty are just not the same. You're getting a teacher, but you're not getting a mentor.
Right.
Exactly what you were talking about. I think one of the largest things that parents and students do when they opt to go to an online course, especially for kids that are moving from high school directly into college, is I think that they miss a vital part of their intellectual and life development in online programs, in that they are not allowed to get out on their own, to live to some degree communally with others, to learn how to interact with others in a living situation, in a communal situation. I think that they do not, they may not get the same types of developmental resources and stimulus in their life as students and as growing adults, getting out on their own, working, managing on their own time instead of mom and dad managing their time, saying you need to get in there and get on the computer and start working on your degree or your schoolwork. They have to manage that process. They're responsible for that process. They are responsible for their social interactions. They are responsible for their leadership development, not their parents. My concern is that if not checked, online can become a cocoon that students put themselves in, and they are stunning themselves to some degree by not having an on-campus interaction or an on-campus experience. They're stunning themselves socially and also intellectually and leadership-wise, getting out,
Right.
becoming independent.
Well, and you and I know that one of the keys to success in moving up in an organization or work or whatever, maybe the key to success, is being able to work with other people.
That's right.
The people who know how to get along, who know how to cooperate, are responsible, are good co-workers, tend to be the ones that
That's right.
advance.
That's right.
And so, is there a way to, even with IT and advanced technology and the sort of communication without immediate human contact, is there a way to somehow create that social environment that teaches us how to get along with other people and work effectively with other people?
Well, yes, I think that it has its place. I think that when you're talking about interaction online, electronically, I think that the written skills are very important. Written communication skills are very important. Emotions are very difficult to relate on that level, but I think that the online environment can actually help with that, help people understand how to be sensitive to those things out there that they might say on the internet that might be construed in a different way than what they really wanted to say. I think that gives them the practice there. It also gives them practice of being able to shoot concise, we hope, concise messages out to groups of people that are meaningful and helpful. But I don't think that there'll ever be, in my opinion, I don't think there'll ever be a replacement for a verbal interaction, a connection with people. People that you've never met in person, you can become somewhat of friends online, but do you still have the same interaction that you and I have as friends and colleagues, as students and professors, as mentors, staff mentors and students? Can you get that out of an online connection? That's a question for the ages, I think.
Right, and then if our identity, personal identity, individual identity, is derived from our relationships,
That's right.
what is happening to the personal human identity of people who only relate to others through this medium? So there's this distance, there isn't a human closeness.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't want to use the word zombie,
Yeah.
but sometimes I get the sense of sort of that, you're in this kind of cyber reality
Yes.
that isn't what we used to call the real reality.
Yes.
And could that create problems with identity and self-identity?
Well, I think that's a psychological issue that probably needs to be dealt and probably has been delved into.
It certainly is being dealt with.
Yeah, dealt with. I think that there's a couple of things. 83% of people today or at least the statistics say, feel like they make friends better over Facebook or Twitter. And about 43% of those same people say that they feel more confident in talking online than they do in person.
Why is that? Why do you think they feel more confident or more at ease talking to people online than in person?
I think that it has to do with them being able to vet what they say, hopefully. I think it has to do with the barrier between not being physically with the person. There's definitely a barrier between you and the other person or people you're talking with. It's the old saying. It's kind of like the relationship between you and Santa. You write a letter to Santa. You never see Santa.
Mm-hmm.
You never. It's a situation where they never have to see the person necessarily. Mm-hmm. So their responsibility, their social responsibility to that person, is lessened. If I lose a Facebook friend that I've never met, have I really lost a friend?
Right.
That's once again a philosophical question.
Right, or if you have made a friend online and then you actually meet them, are you surprised?
Exactly. If a tree falls in the woods, that kind of thing.
Who are you?
Absolutely.
You don't even look like your picture.
Absolutely. And you're never really sure who you're speaking to sometimes.
Right.
I mean, I've heard these things about dating sites and meeting people on dating sites, and they'll meet them in person somewhere, and it's a horrific experience. It is somewhat the same type of situation.
Right.
You never make a real social connection, and this is also philosophical. Do you ever make a real social connection with someone, a real close connection with someone that you do not meet physically and learn who they are, and what their vocal inflections are? Mm-hmm. I know you on paper, but I know you also as a very energetic, happy person. Jolly, if you will, but
some of my family might disagree with
that. and Luby, she's actually agrees with me. I think a jolly person. You don't get to experience that with an online connection.
Right. And as you mentioned, you may not even know who that other person is, which raises the issue of, in general, of internet security, which I know you have to deal with a lot, security issues.
Yeah.
What are sort of to the extent you can tell me?
Sure.
I know some of this is like top secret material, but the way we guard against hackers or whatever, compromised security. But in general, what are the major issues in IT security, and what are sort of the future concerns?
Yeah, I think in terms of IT security, the most important part is right now the most concerning issue is identity theft.
Identity theft.
And of course, we at the college are very specifically concerned about the issues of protecting student, faculty, staff, FERPA, and HIPAA data, HIPAA information, which is more healthcare related. Protecting those Social Security numbers, those names, those birth dates, those contact addresses, those credit card numbers. So it's very important for us to make sure to secure those things so they can't be pandered or picked apart.
Are we able to adjust as new forms of identity theft or new forms of dangers to IT security? Are we able to adjust pretty well?
We are. The problem, and I've heard this stated many times, and I have to agree, the issue is not whether a college or organization, for that matter, is going to get hacked. It is when. And how badly.
Right.
To what level. And I think that is what we try and minimize. There's always, always, always the variables out there. If you say that you're hack-proof, you're just inviting trouble. I think there are always variables out there to put in question your security.
But once you are attacked, cyber attacked, you're able to identify the problem fairly quickly and at least protect yourself from future.
Yes, and that comes into having good people. Being able to, those good people being able to monitor, to assess, to investigate those situations. We have a very, very good security analyst on staff that is trained in what they call IT security forensics. And he is trained in how to investigate these situations, to track through, to look at logs, to look at systems, and to be able to assess what has been accessed, what has not been accessed. Was it valid, or was it a intrusion?
And then how to protect.
And then how to protect.
Further
absolutely.
attack.
Absolutely.
So it really involves a lot of human analysis.
It does. It
like
does.
detective work.
Yeah.
As to where this came from and what it is and how to protect against it.
Absolutely. It is a situation where we have equipment in place to alert and to close off those types of things, but those attacks. But you can have all the equipment in the world, but if you do not have good people and trained people who are diligent and care about what they do, then it's all for naught.
Well, and the attacks are always getting better or worse, right?
They're always getting worse, yes, absolutely.
So it's constantly changing.
Cyber terrorism is a very, very concerning issue in our country right now. And the problem that we have nationally is we do not have enough people going into the cybersecurity area of study and profession. And I have some very, very close friends who are a part of many national and international organizations that try and hold this in check, but they are constantly saying they do not have enough people, enough good, solid people wanting to go into that area to be mentors. And if we don't start developing those areas, as a country, we're going to really be in a difficult situation in a few years.
Just the magnitude, I mean, when you're talking about worldwide IT and the fear that an 8th grade student in the Philippines could hack
That's right.
into our defense systems,
That's
or
right.
financial systems, and shut down more than any army in the past
That's right, exactly right.
could do to a country.
Literally, think about not being able to, going to the bank and not being able to find out how much money you have in your accounts. Think about going out to a restaurant or a gas station and not being able to use your debit card. Think about your identity on governmental systems, social security numbers, credit card numbers. It could be devastating.
Well, just a few weeks ago, I guess the day before the election, there was a large system in this area, Tennessee and Southwest Virginia, that was shut down, and what affected phones, computers, internet.
That's right. That's right.
For several hours.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I know I wasn't affected personally, but I heard someone I know who was actually at a important hospital appointment in the Tri-Cities, and ended up having a procedure delayed and had been driven down by someone in this area and was unable to call back
That's right. That's right.
Be-
That's right. Well, electronic medical records, I have a very good friend with one of our medical establishments in Kingsport, Johnson City. And that's a big concern for him and his staff, making sure that medical records are also, very soon, medical records will be all electronic. So, you know, his concern is the HIPAA standards and regulations and making sure that that information is secure.
But so far, correct me if I'm wrong, whatever the attack has been, we've been able to identify and fix it fairly quickly. I mean, within, say, 24 hours.
So far.
So I think we'll be able to continue doing that.
That's a good question. I think that it's interesting that higher education is so under attack these days. You know, our politicians say that our educators and our administrators are paid too much, but at the end of the day, they are relied upon to teach students how to do these things. And if they don't, we don't have a future in many areas.
So again, that gets back to our original concern of if IT is causing us to think more in these pieces, as fragments, rather than long thoughts, is that going to affect us in being able to analyze the problems? Or is it like, you know, I tend to like to think in long thoughts and, you know, book length projects, but, you know, when we went from, say, an oral tradition in human history where we didn't have the written word, so we're told, say, in biblical times that people could literally hear a speech, say the Sermon on the Mount, and could memorize it and then repeat it, because that oral tradition developed the part of the mind that can memorize verbal things. When we got the printed word, that part of the mind declined, but then we had access to all these books and all the knowledge, you know, from the past. And so I think, you know, in the long run, we'd say we're better off.
True.
Will we say we're better off now with the sort of perhaps fragmented information on contemporary IT, even though we may lose some of the older, long thoughts?
Well, and this goes back to another philosophy. I personally would like to see my children go to a liberal arts school. And the reason being is that, not necessarily that they're going to be majors in history or political science or English or whatever, although I think those are wonderful, and I'd be a proud father if they did go into those areas. But I think the issue for many of our liberal arts institutions across the country is that they focus on the greater mind, the broader mind. Very good example. I taught a class in project management a couple of years ago here. And I gave a group of students, actually several groups of students, a problem, an abstract problem, one that was not terribly defined. And they had to fill in all the pieces and parts to make, to actually come to a solution, and a solution to the project and a plan for the project. They had a very hard time understanding how to take those various and sundry pieces of the puzzle and make something happen with those. That is an abstract skill. That is a critical thinking skill.
Right.
And I believe that in education today, I believe, at least in many state institutions, we are educating to put someone directly into a job to do a certain thing for the rest of their lives, which is fine. I think that that's fine to some degree, but I believe that it is also extremely important for the person, not for the economy, not for the government, not for anyone else. I believe it's very important for the person, the intellectual growth of the student, to learn critical thinking skills, to break out beyond business, finance, which is my training. I have 2 masters, one in finance and economics, and then one in IT. I believe that my graduate school process helped me in the critical thinking. My undergraduate process, not as much, because I was in one school of thought.
Mm-hmm.
I was trained to do this one thing and to know everything about this one thing. But in education today, we've lost a sense, I think some of our institutions have lost a sense of the greater mind of the student, and filling out all those pieces and parts in history and English and education and different areas, mathematics, filling that greater mind with critical thinking skills that can then be put into one specific area that the student chooses to go into as a profession or a course of graduate school or that type.
So the interdisciplinary nature of a liberal arts college, where you have to study many different fields, is one way to overcome that fragmented.
I believe so. I believe so.
Well, like you, I see a mixed kind of result. If I had to judge by my midterm exam, all of which are essay, I certainly don't see a total breakdown of thought and analysis and being able to think of fairly deep ideas in some length.
Sure.
But it's almost as though it's 50-50. 50% really do that well, I mean, in the traditional sense of thought and reasoning, and 50% don't do it at all.
It's true.
And I'm wondering what the variables are that determine that.
That's a good question. I think that's, once again, a psychological study that probably has been done several times over and probably not come to any really solid conclusions. I think that probably deals with the person's makeup, the person's interests, background.
I think it's a sociological study too, because perhaps you picked up those other skills in your family, workplace, friendship.
Yes.
What Aristotle called your telos is developed in several rings of human relationships, beginning with the household.
That's right.
And then society, family, work, friendship, and then politics.
And then that factors directly into what my comments were about residential living in terms of a school, college, breaking out on your own, and having those outside discussions that form your opinions, form your critical thinking, form who you are.
So we have someone here who is well acquainted with the academic and social student side of life. So I know that Laura K. Rogers has some questions and comments.
Well, welcome to Thoughts and Talk, Dr. Fowlkes, and thanks for being on camera instead of behind it for once. We appreciate your time today. And of course, I have a few questions, and surprisingly, none about Facebook in particular.
Okay.
So first of all, what is your opinion about employers checking social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter as a type of pre-employment screening, or even firing employees based off of pictures or statuses from those sites?
Oh gosh, that's a
a
difficult
toughie.
question.
We'll start with an easy one.
That's a difficult question. I personally, my personal feelings from dealing with these things over the years, because I have had to deal with many of these things over the years. I personally think that in education, and we're going to focus on my career in education, I believe that that being a part of a college, whether you're a staff member, a faculty member, or a student, you are a part of an organization of the mind. Okay? So I believe that it's very important for students, faculty, and staff to have interactions together as they feel free to do so. I believe that there has to be a line drawn in terms of work time and the amount of time you spend on Facebook or Twitter or those types of things. Of course, that's in general a responsibility for each of us to be able to monitor. I think that faculty and staff, those interactions over Facebook are going to happen. You cannot legislate them. You cannot create policies against them that will be in themselves altogether positive for the institution. In terms of time, I believe that organizations have the right to be able to, some organizations have the right to monitor how much time people spend on Facebook or whatever on work time. I think that's important. In a college, it has to be much more relaxed than a corporate organization or business organization, because once again, we are a different entity, we are a different organization, we're an organization of the mind. So I think that it's very important for us to understand that that is part of being a mentor as a staff person, as a faculty member, as fellow students, to help people think about what the line is in terms between personal and professional. I think that's important for us to all develop. I think that that is hard to legislate. I think it's important for some organizations to control the amount of time people spend on Facebook. Do I think it should be completely abolished? No, I don't, because some of those interactions, at least for me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I'm not a Twitter follower, but I'm not a tweeter, but some of those interactions that I have on a daily basis are interactions with people in other campuses that they're colleagues in other places that I'm good friends with. So I think those interactions are very, very important. And I'll ask in any given week, I'll ask 2 or 3 questions to my colleagues at other institutions over Facebook, and they'll ask 1 or 2, 3, 4 to me.
So it's hard to draw a line sometimes.
That's exactly right.
Between your professional communication and the social network communication.
That's right.
Because it can be both.
That's right.
And hard to draw a line. I think part of what Loopy there is asking, correct me if I'm wrong,
You're good.
is sort of the reality that there isn't an absolute law of privacy. And one of the difficulties with, say, Facebook or other social, because it's so easy and you don't see the response of a person in the room when you say something.
Sure.
We've seen the problem of people actually being shocked by what they themselves have said.
Sure.
And realizing that they wish they'd been more discreet. So discretion is something that has to be learned in an environment that doesn't really encourage it.
True.
But there are kind of natural law consequences if you have said certain things or done certain things that are recorded on the World Wide Web, and then that's going to affect your professional life.
That's right. That's right.
Or your employment or whatever.
That's the second part of her question, which is, do you think people should be now, in terms of screening for jobs and those types of things, I don't think that is I don't think that that's appropriate to screen people, look them up on Facebook and screen them from that. I don't think that that's terribly appropriate for institutions and organizations to do that.
But it is done by business.
It is definitely done by business, but I don't know that that's completely appropriate, because that's more of a, that's more, I look at that as calling up, let's say that you're interviewing with me, and I know that you're good friends with Eric Smith. Well, I'm going to call up Eric Smith out of the blue and say, hey, what's his personal life like? I think that needs to be a line drawn in the sand. If Facebook is not a part of their job description or their job duties, I think that should be more private and seen as that. LinkedIn may be a different situation, because it is a professional network, a professional networking resource. So I think that that's a bit different. But it's like picking up the daily news and and picking up the difference between the New York Times and the National Enquirer.
Yeah, they used to say, if when you wrote something on email, if you didn't want the world to see it, don't write it.
That's exactly right,
email.
and I think that's the same. That's the same on Facebook. Yeah, I think that there's responsibility there,
right.
and that's also a development aspect. I think that people need to realize that if they don't close their Facebook pages down and limit them to just friends,
right?
That's a responsibility for us. So you don't put anything out there that you don't want the world.
So would you say, Ms. Rogers, that most young people your age know that? Do they know that?
I don't believe that they do know, or if they do know, they're ignorant and they don't care. Sometimes I know that there are some of my friends who limit their Facebook or Twitter just for friends and even exclude their family members. So I guess it's just different people, different reasons. For me, I'm very open. Again, I am who I am, and they're going to find out eventually. Might as well find it out first on Facebook.
Well, that's an honest thing. You are who you are. My thoughts are, if you don't want someone to see your information, then don't friend them.
Yeah. Or just don't even put it up there. And that's something that I've refrained from using
yeah.
my personal location. It kind of ties into the second question, is I won't use my location. Not that I have paranoia that someone's going to find me and stalk me, but you never know. Because as a student of administration of justice, I've noted that there is an entire field of just cyber crimes.
Yes.
Things that include stalking, like I said, whether it starts virtually and then becomes a physical reality.
That's right.
And that's very frightful, especially for a college student.
Absolutely.
So how can the online community crack down on these problems of cybercrime?
I think it is a situation where you do what you feel comfortable doing, but at the same time you need to be very, very aware that these things happen, and they happen on a more and more frequent basis. And the people that you think you're friending or you're tweeting with or you're connecting up with online are not necessarily the people that you think they are. Even when you've met them and maybe you've known them for a month or two, they're still not the same, not necessarily people, the people that you think they are. I would say that internet is a microcosm of real life.
The best and the worst.
I kind of liken it to being in high school.
Oh boy.
We all had girlfriends and boyfriends. I had girlfriends in high school.
You had girlfriends?
Yes, I had girlfriends in high school, and you think you know them, even after
a month.
A month, you know them and you're ready to tie the knot. But over time, that relationship erodes. And whatever you shared with them becomes public knowledge after you break up, correct?
Right.
So a situation, this is the same situation. If you share your passwords with that person, if you share your innermost feelings, if you share your Facebook posts, you share your Facebook administration, whatever, with someone else, it could be dangerous. It could be very dangerous, and especially when you're meeting people online. I would advise making sure that if you're going to meet someone that you've only met online, make sure it's in a public place, and you for the first many connections, make sure that they're all in a public place, and you make sure that there are lots of people around, and you maybe go with a friend. I would suggest that very strongly. I believe Student Life has sessions specifically on Facebook dating and online dating and cybersecurity for yourself. So.
Am I permitted one more question, or are we good?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Finally, I am a video gamer. Not sure if you are, but I'm casual. I also am a writer and a moderator for some gaming forums. And some of the members I've seen, you were kind of that cocoon effect, where they're just so wrapped up in this virtual world that they almost lose connection with reality other than these online communications. So how do people kind of recover from this addiction?
Oh gosh.
I know. Philosophical question.
You know, that's a difficult process. I think that there are groups, there are focus groups, and what you would call AA for gamers that are out there. It becomes a social addiction. It becomes an addiction of the mind, and some may say that it's as strong as an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction. I believe that we're getting into that situation with our mobile devices.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I have not checked my iPhone in the last hour, and I'm beginning to get withdrawal. That's a problem. That's a real problem with our society today. I think with gamers, and yes, I have. My son loves games, and he and I play on the Xbox and have fun with each other and other people online also that we know. I think that there's a lot to be said with beginning to mature. There are people who never grow up,
Right.
as you know. I think that being a gamer does not mean that you're immature. I believe that it is a very, very valid and very fun pastime, just as back in the day when canasta was big. You know,
Wow.
people played canasta. I think anything that consumes you is bad. Most things that consume you. Books consume you. Drugs can consume you. Alcohol can consume you. I think that video games can, if not taken in moderation, can consume you, and I think that is a bad thing for your mind. It's a bad thing for your social interactions. How to break out of that? I think you need to get some help. If you've got a serious problem, I think you need to get some help, get some counseling on that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Vice Chancellor Fowlkes. It's been very interesting, and I know we'll want to do this again. It's a topic that will be growing and developing. We appreciate everyone involved today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for this. Watching this CAV TV episode of Thoughts and Talk.